ancient astronaut research for over 12 years. So he's really taken that on as well.
Just everybody, Erich von Däniken was the guy who in 1968 really pushed the ancient aliens discussion into the limelight with his Chariots of the Gods. Sorry? Yeah. So.
Do you know what? In its time, that was awesome. My parents have a copy, or they had a copy, I think I've got it now, had a copy of the book, and they were just always over it trying to get me to read it, and I didn't want to know anything about gods. But I didn't realize what it was all about until it was already too late and I couldn't talk about it with my mother. So, let me keep going. So, he's also, let me just keep reading it. Where was it? He graduated, 1998, with a degree in communications and sports information. But you know what? All that does is make him uniquely qualified to speak on matters concerning the movie.
He's very articulate. Yeah.
That's pretty much it. But look, what I like to say is he's the star, and I'd have to say he's the star. There are a lot of contributing people towards the show, but he's the star and consulting producer of the Ancient Alien series, right? So he's got a lot weighing in this, and you know he avidly supports it. All the people on his show, you know, while they even may differ slightly in their opinions about the whys, whos and hows, what they come together with is what you see on the show, and it knocked my socks off that he even agreed to do an interview with us.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Surprising.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, honestly, we have a 30-minute interview with him, and without further ado,
let's play it.
I'd like everyone to hear it. Now, we're going to go in the chat room and we're going to be posting links as well, okay? Are we ready, Mackie?
I think so.
Are they ready?
I don't know, but roll it anyway.
You've got it. Thank you very much, Giorgio. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Wonderful. I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I have to say we're huge fans of yours. And I followed you for a long time on YouTube, all of the old videos. Geez, you must have been young from some of the beginning ones that I've seen. But but we're huge fans, and we're so happy that Ancient Alien series has come out. And so what I'd like to talk to you today about, I'd like to take us through, if we can, just the quick topics I'll mention. So like monoliths, underground cities, petroglyphs. And recently uncovered Göbekli Tepe, and the spacesuits you might see people in the petroglyphs as well. So, how about we start with monoliths, if you like, or actually no. Why don't we start? You just tell us how you fell into what you do.
Oh, sure. I actually have to thank my parents for what I'm doing today, because I had the great privilege growing up traveling around the planet with my parents, because they were avid travelers and they saved up as much money as they could in order to go and travel. That was their idea of a good time. And so each time that we would go somewhere, upon returning, my grandmother would make sure to tell me that, look, you've just explored the mainstream viewpoints of all those different places that you've just been to, but let me tell you that there's also an alternative viewpoint to all of this. And so already at a very young age, I was introduced to the ideas of Erich von Däniken and the ancient astronaut theory and Zacharias Sitchin and all those different authors and researchers and all of that stuff. And, so this was dinner table conversation, so to speak, at my house for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. My mother worked with Qantas and we flew around, but we went to all the tourist destinations, and there was definitely no post conversations with my grandmother about that. That's awesome. So you fell into the field pretty quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it's it fascinated me because I knew that there was something more to the whole story than what we're being told. And that I thought was, mightily fascinating, for sure.
Yeah, awesome. So, in all of your, I think we take it. Could I take it back to the Sumerians? You mentioned that, and the Sumerian set text, and Erich von Däniken and Zachariah Sitchin. They were groundbreakers in their time, right? We're breaking news.
Well, I mean, Erich von Däniken with his book Chariots of the Gods, he basically, as you said, he did break ground for the ancient astronaut theory, which basically proposes that Earth has been visited by extraterrestrials in the remote past. And in that book, that question was explored. And if you recall, even the title itself had a giant question mark on it. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of people say, well, this is what he said and this is what he proposed and blah, 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 blah. And the truth of the matter is that all he did was ask questions. Mm-hmm. Therein lies the difference. The book itself had over 200 question marks, and nobody saw the question marks, apparently. And, what I find funny about all of this is that, since when has asking questions become unscientific, or since when is something like that looked down upon? I mean, that to me is highly fascinating because, the bottom line is that, hey, it's okay to ask questions, and if it so turns out that these questions are in fact uncomfortable, then you know what? So be it. Of course, it's okay. Those questions are uncomfortable, and the only reason why those questions are uncomfortable is because people, they're no longer satisfied with the mainstream answers that we've been given, and so the ancient alien theory tries to explain, at least, another viewpoint of the world of what might have happened in our remote past, and our remote past was in fact legendary.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And part of that, I think the questions that get raised and the opposition to the questions is because it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't fit the model. It's not what we're taught. The mainstream and the textbooks are teaching us one thing, and if you find something that doesn't fit the model, it's disposed of. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And the crazy thing is that if you look at certain things where science obviously has been wrong in the past, the scientists today, as they have in the past, have always maintained that whatever they know at the moment is the pinnacle of all knowledge, and that everything has been discovered, everything has been, there are no mysteries, everything, all the questions have been answered, and as we all now know, that's completely untrue. And so, the fact that, we have the exact same people from the exact same fields of sciences talking the same way they did 200 years ago, that's not very scientific. It's very flabbergasting to me how anyone can claim that the questions that I ask are ridiculous because they know that extraterrestrials do not exist, and they know that if extraterrestrials exist, there is no way in hell that they could have ever come here in the past. And that is not scientific. I mean, to me, that attitude is the height of human arrogance.
Oh yeah, completely. They're basing what they believe aliens can do and achieve upon our own achievements. So if we can only go to the closest moon, and we can't fold space time or do anything, they believe that no one else can do it, and I believe you're so right.
Yeah, it's quite pathetic to suggest just because we can't do it, another society cannot do it either. That would mean that that society is the exact same age as we are, and we know that even astronomers and astrophysicists are saying this, that we are, in comparison to the entire universe, we are a very young planet. Mm-hmm. Or in regards to our galaxy alone, forget the universe, just our galaxy alone, that we are a very, very new and young planet, especially with its developments on it and stuff like that. And so, to suggest that we are, as advanced as other civilizations who potentially are 100,000, if not 1,000,000 years older than us, mm-hmm. Providing that they have survived, of course. But it's just staggering. And to me, the question is, why not? And the answer, of course, is yes. That something did happen in our past that was rather bizarre, and at the same time, people are afraid to accept the answers that we're giving.
Yeah, if you listen to all of the ancient cultures and look at all the information they provide, how can there not be a correlation between all of their stories, and when they say stories, the stories that are passed down, or the written stories, like in the Sumerian text, that clearly state that aliens came down, or the correct terminology is from space, from where they came from space, the star people, or they came from the heavens. Each one of the cultures described the same thing, and they'd say they taught us all this stuff.
Right, exactly, and I'm really happy you bring up that point, because a lot of the critics and a lot of the skeptics of the ancient alien theory, they're always saying, hey, well, this is something where you are, with your ancient alien theory, you are undermining human ingenuity. And that to me is absolute nonsense, because, who is insulting who? The bottom line is that the ancient cultures told us, they said in their that this stuff was all accomplished with the help of...
Hello? Can you hear me? Anybody out there? Anybody out there? No? What's going on?
Our ancestors' imagination. Now that, to me, is the insult, because we are basically, or the mainstream is saying, that our ancestors were so full of crap that they had nothing better to do at the time than to come up with stories. And that, to me, is the insult. Not that what we are suggesting, reinterpreting the way that, the stuff was told to us, by our ancestors, when they talked about gods, or when they talked about the guardians of the sky, that we have to understand that gods, in the sense that we think of gods today, really never existed. It was not something that was pulled out of our ancestors' imagination. Those gods were not a figment. They were not pulled out of thin air, but they were, in fact, flesh and blood extraterrestrials whom our ancestors perceived to have been gods, not because those extraterrestrials were divine, but because they had access to technology whom our ancestors didn't understand that actually was technology. Look, Arthur C. Clarke, he summed up the ancient alien theory the best. He said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And so that is exactly what happened in our past, that we have this giant, cargo cult misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And if somebody, says or thinks that, we're off our rockers here, then they are the ones who don't know what they're talking about, because I know my material, I know my subject, I know my stuff, I know about the correlations and connections between different ancient cultures, and, the verdict is clear. Now, whether or not you choose to subscribe to the verdict or not, the hell do I care? Either you see it or you don't. If you don't see it, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I can tell you this right now.
You mentioned cargo cults in there, and that's so important for us to reflect upon that in a modern sense, right? And also, you also mentioned the way that people can describe something is only valid within their own jurisdiction of language.
Exactly. And I like that, what you just said, and also within their jurisdiction of their frame of reference as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because we have to understand that the collective knowledge that we have today, the stuff that we've amassed in knowledge today, is infinitely larger and more massive than, 5,000 years ago, the collective knowledge of 5,000 years ago. So to suggest that our ancestors knew what they saw flying up in the sky, that they were actual machines, that they knew that, is ridiculous because they didn't know about machines back then. And to suggest that they did is complete nonsense. And that is why all of a sudden we have myths about dragons and flying furnaces and, beings looking like angels, quote unquote, wearing, shiny clothes or metallic shimmering clothes and things like that. So, it's all one big giant misunderstanding.
Absolutely. I've always been, every time I hear the word myth, for me, I was brought up in the mainstream, and hearing the word myth meant that I was supposed to ignore that information because it was fictional. Right? That's the way I was taught the word myth is meant to be categorized. And today, certainly with all the research that Mickey and I have done, we know that not to be the case. I mean, Sumerians, for instance, how would they know that Neptune was blue?
Right, exactly. And I can tell you how they knew, because they told us how they knew. They actually wrote down in cuneiform on their tablets, they wrote down that they received that knowledge from the Anunnaki. And the word Anunnaki means nothing else but those who from the heavens came. Yet, we look at that stuff, it's staring us in the eyes, and we're looking the other way, and we're saying, oh, that could have never happened. Of course not. Interstellar, for extraterrestrials, that must have been, interstellar space travel, this and that. Well, that must be nonsense. Of course not, because, well, we can't do it, so why would anybody else be able to? See, here is the big taboo topic of today and the big taboo topic of the 60s. In the 60s, you only found a handful of scientists or astrobiologists, and they were truly a handful, maybe 10 people all around the planet, scientists, professors, who entertained the idea that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe. Now, today, the taboo topic is different. You'd be hard-pressed to find any scientist today who will disagree or who will tell you that there is no other life in the universe. Pretty much everybody agrees that life exists elsewhere in the universe. However, what the big taboo topic is today is that while, yes, life exists elsewhere, there is no way that life could have ever come here in the past, or even today visiting us, with modern-day UFO reports. I mean, it's the height of human arrogance. It's really such a awful and, narrow-minded view. It's not even funny. And like I said at the outset of this interview, it is also highly unscientific to hold such a stance.
Oh, agreed. It alters your findings because you're going to exclude all that evidence as it comes up and comes your way. I've got a question, and it leads in. If we haven't in our past been visited in any way, and all of this stuff is wrong, how on earth could we, if we can't do it today, build some of those monolithic structures that we have all around the world in the date period that we built it? Now, we couldn't even build it today, right?
Well, actually, we could. With all the technology that we have today, and if we were to put our heads together, but right there, it's a thing of the impossible.
Yeah.
If we look at politics worldwide and how we interact with each other, I mean, it's absolutely insane what's going on our planet right now. So we actually could build, all of the ancient monuments. However, we would use the most gigantic of machines, the most sophisticated of machines, and to suggest that our ancestors did all of that ancient stuff with wooden rollers and they pulled it with dental floss and they carved everything with chicken bones, it's ridiculous. Because, we're talking pure physics here.
Yeah.
We're no longer talking wishful thinking. We're talking pure physics. And if somebody wants to believe that, a 1,000 ton, not pound, a 1,000 ton, 1 metric ton, by the way, in case some of our audience is not familiar, 1 metric tons is 2,200 pounds. So you do the math, what that means for a 1,000 ton block. So if somebody wants to believe that this was, cut out of the rock face with chicken bones, and then it was transported with wooden rollers by pulling it with dental floss, go ahead. That is your prerogative. It's your choice if you want to lull yourself into believing that that is how it happened. Now, today, if we were to replicate the stuff, like I said, we would have to bring together the most massive of equipment. We would have to bring together the best engineers to have ever walked planet Earth. And, it would be a very collaborative effort. Now, another misconception that, the ancient alien theory apparently has in the mainstream is that, people look at me and they say, oh, you're that guy who says that the pyramids were built by aliens. And nothing could be further from the truth. I have never claimed, not once, that the pyramids or any of the ancient structures were built by aliens. What I did suggest, however, and what it does say in the ancient texts is that these ancient monuments, all of them, were built by human beings, but with the assistance of the guardians of the sky, or the teachers from heaven, or the gods, or whoever you want to call them. And those gods, or those teachers from heaven, were nothing else but flesh and blood extraterrestrials, space travelers, whom our ancestors misperceived to be these amazingly advanced divine beings, which, of course, they never were.
Absolutely. Maybe, designed as well as in the assistance, maybe some of the design. That's what I see as well. Of course.
Yeah. Oh, totally. No. I mean, no. That is, of course, the idea that, the pyramids were built under the instructions of extraterrestrials. That, this is, you need to put this stone over here, that goes over there. What, you can't move this? Let me help you. Let me introduce you how you operate my machine, and then, we'll just supervise you. But they didn't dirty their hands, the extraterrestrials. I mean, if you were to arrive on a distant planet and you found an obedient workforce, so to speak, where, the moment that you descend from the sky, you have achieved instant godlike status. Well, whether or not you are a kind person or not, you're still going to act upon that. Maybe in a good way, hopefully, or, as we can see in the text of our ancient past, and sometimes also in a negative manner, But the bottom line is that it all happened with extraterrestrial assistance, because not only do we have texts that describe it, but we have texts of eyewitness reports where it says that this is what happened. We received help from them who descended from the sky.
Wow. I just love that. Hey, I was going to ask you a question to do with petroglyphs, right? So they're found all around the world, and a lot of them have pictures of either people flying spaceships or what today we'd interpret as a spaceship, or they've got a space suit on. And I also want to ask you about the helicopter glyph.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
All right.
What's fascinating about the statues that we find all around the world, the figurines, that, looked at from a modern perspective, they look as if they're wearing some type of, hermetically sealed suit, like a space suit or something like that, or a hazmat suit or something. And, a lot of times people are asking, well, why would extraterrestrials wear the same type of, Apollo suits that we are familiar with today? And, to be very blunt with it, what a dumb question is that? Because, have we gone to the moon naked? Would we enter into any hazardous environment, naked? No, of course not. If there's potential of, infection or even death, of course we're going to suit up. Of course we're not going to, let that happen, that we're going to die because of some, carelessness. So to suggest that extraterrestrials could come here and they could just, walk around, naked, it's kind of odd because,
it's absurd almost, isn't it?
Yeah, because, just even hypothetically, let's assume that the air is breathable to extraterrestrials here. Mm-hmm. That still doesn't mean that maybe there are some contaminants in the air that we're totally fine with, but to extraterrestrials, it might be rather fatal. And so then people might ask, well, what about the Greys? Don't they all walk around naked and stuff like this? And it's like, yeah, okay, but like there's different races on planet Earth. There's different races and different species out there. So, the Greys, maybe that's just, how they like it, whatever. It's all a big giant question mark anyway. And then, what was your second question about some hieroglyphs?
Yeah, the Abidos glyph, the helicopter glyph.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, that's another very, very cool a piece of the whole ancient astronaut puzzle. And a lot of people think of it as the smoking gun, because what you have there is you have a lintel stone at the Temple of Abidos in Egypt. And if you look at it, very first impression is that you're looking at a helicopter, at a tank, and at what looks to be like some type of a UFO. And to a lot of people, that carving is the smoking gun. It's like, look, man, they had helicopters back then. They had tanks, and they also had some type of flying craft, flying machines. And, for the longest time, dude, I was, really enamored with that carving, but then it turned out it's not what we think it is. And so I published a story about this in Legendary Times, the magazine that I publish, and to this day I get flack for the article that I wrote in which I presented that the hieroglyphics that we look at the Abidos Temple are really not what we're looking at. And so what had happened is that when the temple was first commissioned and built, the original Pharaoh, he had a whole bunch of texts carved into the ceilings and onto all the walls and everywhere else. And then when his son came along, and I think it was either Ramses or Seti and Ramses, one of the two, switching back and forth, the father and son. When his son came along, he, of course, looked at all these writings, and he said, well, you know what? I'm not too happy about certain passages here that I'm reading, so I'd like to have them changed. So he had his artisans go in there and recarve some of those hieroglyphs. And so by superimposing another hieroglyph on top of an old one through the carving of it, it created something that looked like a helicopter, looked like a tank, and looked like some type of a flying UFO or something. But at the same time, I just said looked like. I didn't say it was, because it certainly wasn't. And, and a lot of people got very upset, in fact, to this day, that, this is what happened. And, to me, that's not very scientific, because if you have a whole bunch of pieces of evidence and then you eliminate one piece of evidence, that does not mean that you destroy the entire theory. In fact, you just make it stronger, because the more false things that you eliminate, the better.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you. It's funny. You have so many supporters in each one, and they'll latch onto one thing and think that's the locking stone. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And it shouldn't be that way, because a theory always, has like different avenues that you can pursue and look at, and you don't have to be stuck with one single piece. And just because that piece now is gone, that I'm still the number one proponent of the ancient alien theory. I mean, that does not eliminating that piece has not dissuaded me in one bit. On the contrary, it's just everything is stronger and better, because another example is that pillar, that iron pillar in Delhi, where up until the 70s or 80s, people were writing about that in ancient alien books, how there's this iron pillar in Delhi, and we don't know where it's from, and look, it's not rusting, it's not corroding at all, and it's been here for thousands of years, and we don't know where it came from, and the results have been inconclusive, and this most certainly must have been some kind of an extraterrestrial thing that was brought here from elsewhere.
Yeah.
Well, meantime, today in Delhi, you can go there, and the pillar is rusting, it is corroding, it's falling apart. So whatever. It's take it out of the pool of evidence. Done.
Yeah.
And but there is 5,000 other pieces of evidence, and if people decide that those pieces of evidence are not satisfactory to them, then there's nothing that you and I can do. And the funniest thing to me is always people writing me on Facebook or on Twitter or something. And then they're like, okay, I really enjoy watching your show, but,
here it comes.
How come you guys don't present any evidence?
What?
Now, how do you react to, thank you, exactly. How do you react to that? You cannot react other than, oh, okay, well then, if you think that we're not presenting evidence, or that what you're looking at, in your opinion, is not evidence, then I cannot help you. I cannot help you, because we are looking at evidence. The stuff that's presented is evidence. And whether or not you subscribe to it or not, that's up to you, not to me. And quite frankly, like I said at the beginning, I could care less if you agree what I have to say or not. I mean, it's not like I'm losing any sleep over it at all.
Giorgio, I'm gonna say this right now, right here on radio. I'm gonna say, out of all the people in the whole world, I'm positive that you're not an ancient alien debunker.
Right, exactly.
Right. Look, I'm gonna ask. Look, I've only got a very, very short time with you, and if you just chose one of the things, and then I'll let you get on with your business. So, would you like to talk about Derinkuyu in Turkey?
Sure. I mean, Derinkuyu is a very fascinating place, and it is in the middle of Turkey, in an area or a region called Cappadocia, and Derinkuyu is a city there that today is flourishing and wonderful, but at the time, back in the day, Derinkuyu was known more as there was nothing there. It was just a complete flat surface with nothing in the area. But Derinkuyu used to be an underground city that went down 13 stories underground, and big stories, not just where you have to like lower your head. Oh no, you can walk upright, 13 levels dug into or carved into the bedrock, subterranean, with giant round doors that could only be locked from the inside. Now, why would you do this? And according to some estimates, the city has been built in order to house up to I forget, it was either 15,000 people or 30,000 people.
Yeah, I heard
Either
30.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, either way, even if it is 15,000, that's a crap load of people. And, you know, for them to all be, yeah, exactly. And, you know, and then you have to ask yourself, why? For what? I mean, what's the reason? I mean, who in their right mind would bury themselves alive into the ground? I mean, nobody would do that. So, and of course, the local legends, or the ancient local legends there, talk about marauders coming from the sky. Wow. And then all of a sudden, this whole thing makes sense, because you live in that region that is completely flat. Well, if somebody flies over you, then, you know, you're in plain sight if they happen to come. But if you are living underground, then, you know, and of course, if you're careful with your smoke expulsion from the fires and stuff like this, then, you know, all of a sudden it becomes very interesting, and then you have to ask yourself, well, you know, how or from where did these marauders came, or what did they want, and above all, why the hell did they fly?
Yeah, that's another question. Because when was it built? When was it supposed to? What's the word on its construction date?
Well, nobody really knows, because the bottom line is that you cannot date stone. I mean, you can, but that method is very expensive, and none of the universities are using it any longer, because each time that they dated the actual stone, and you know, and stone cannot be dated with the C14 method or the carbon dating method. Each time the method was used of measuring stone or dating stone, the stone was always older than what the people thought it would be. So, you know, very quietly and very discreetly, that method was stopped being used, because it always yielded, you know, way older results than what was expected.
Because you're only dating the stone. It's not like you made the stone. That's right. So you're cutting stone. You're just going to be measuring the date of the stone. Yeah, that's a bit.
Right. Well, no, it's a method where if you cut the stone, there is a chemical reaction that takes place on the surface of the stone,
the
with the patina and things like that, and oxidization, and that is how they can measure it's called the thermoluminescent method of dating stone. But, you know, and of course the big discussion today is the reason why it's not being used is because it's too expensive and we don't have the funding for it. But that's nonsense. The true story is that you know, this place or these stones or this method has been used, and every time that the method has been used, the result was always thousands and thousands of years older than what the archaeologists were expecting. And of course, that does not fit into their,
model.
house of cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Into their model.
Yeah.
Which is a house of cards. Great.
Oh, it's absolutely perfect. Giorgio, you know, it's actually a pleasure to talk with you, and I respect the time that we've got.
Absolutely.
Anytime you have something to put forward, if you want to defend yourself and don't want just Facebook to do it, you're welcome on here. I just wish Becky was here with us for our show today, but
we'll do it next time. We'll do it next time all together, and I'm sure that we shall do this again, because I had a great time. This half hour flew by like it was nothing.
I know. Tell me about it. So, all right. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, Giorgio. Okay, guys. I hope everyone enjoyed the interview with Giorgio. How about you, Mackie? You still online?
I'm here, buddy. Absolutely.
Excellent.
See, the transition was so smooth. I wasn't quite sure if it was you talking in the audio that we recorded, or if it was actually you talking in real time. Oh, whatever that means right now. Yes, no, it was excellent. It was excellent. And again, of course, we could have explored 1,000 more topics. And I reckon we could have probably spoken for 4 or 5 hours without running out of steam. Unfortunately, as Dave mentioned as well, Giorgio is very sought after, and his timetable is chock-a-block. So we were very lucky to get him for even a half hour. And again, my apologies for not being there, but my masters had other ideas. My masters!
You know what? It's all good because I got to do a great interview and I love it. And for everyone out there, we had done a different one, but they had technical difficulties and no, so we got a do-over with him, who was so polite and gracious to give us some more time. But as you heard, he loves it, and he's lining up another interview with us in 6 months for a whole hour. So look, we're going to be probably whittling away some of the topics to really nail him onto a couple of those and really get some great detail out of him, because do you know what? If he's not a wealth of information, I don't know who is in this arena. Yeah. So Meki, look, we're almost at the top of the hour. If you want to, do you want to just give the listeners a bit of a quick overview about what we're going to be talking about? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Look, guys. Obviously, since we had Giorgio on, and his main area of expertise, or interest, I should say, is the ancient alien question. And we're going to dedicate the rest of the show, and potentially a segment of a future show to this topic. We haven't really discussed this yet, and there are a number of, viewpoints that we're going to present you with, both Dave's and mine, after the top of the hour. In fact, I might be able to get into this here, but let me put it this way: we're going to be talking about ancient aliens. We're going to talk about how that ties in with modern technical advancements. We will be talking about aliens in the Third Reich and how that plays into the ancient alien question as well. We will be talking about some manifestations and in fact, legend of manifestations that has gone before, again tying into the ancient alien theme. We're going to be talking a little bit about angels and demons and how they play into that. There's also a segment we're planning to talk on the Men in Black and the Greys. And we're going to mention our friend the Moon. And the anomalies that could link it to ancient visitations as well.
There's a segue for next week's.
Oh, absolutely. And again, there's ancient evidence. We will discuss the Nazca lines, the Vimanas, the pyramids, Teotihuacan. We'll talk about the Sumerians, Pakal's sarcophagus. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. That's a very interesting one. We're going to discuss a little bit the Indian Vedas, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, Puma Punku, which we've spoken about to at length. Mm-hmm. And we will also, we probably don't have time for all of this today, we will discuss the flower of life. Is to those of you that are a little more spiritually oriented, it's probably a
are you going to get esoteric on me?
I have to. Because Dave, this is our 20th show, by the way, everybody.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hey, by the way, Meki, congratulations on bringing both of us up here to the 20th episode. Awesome.
And to you, Dave, and to you, absolutely. And thanks for holding the fort down when my masters tell me to do other things. I appreciate that.
And thanks the other day too, when nothing happened the right way. And you did great, man, keeping it afloat.
You got to do it right. And look, it's for you listeners here that we do this. Really, I mean, for us, it's great. We've got a soapbox we can stand on. And it's fantastic. Like Jim Mars, it's the first box of freedom. So the flower of life is probably a symbol that you're familiar with, or some of you at least. It ties into the Metatron's cube, tesseracts as well. So we'll discuss that when we come back, but not all of this today. So we've got an hour after the station break, and I will outline my viewpoint of ancient aliens. Dave will outline his, and how it in fact ties to shows we had in the past. And you will notice that things just keep coming up. The same things come up. The same sites are being mentioned, the same places, same people, same events. And that's because they're all connected, you see. We might do a show on Bigfoot, we might do a show on ancient ruins, we might even do a show on UFOs, and the same names will come up again and again. And this is really what Dave and I are trying to show you guys. This is all connected. You can't just pick a conspiracy theory or a field of interest and say, yeah, that's it. That's what I like. This is now my reality. Everything else, you can just go and suck eggs.
Because nothing else is real.
Yeah.
The one I want to believe in, my little silo, is the only real one.
Correct. And it's the discussion, right? It's the discussion and the debate we were trying to encourage. And there's certain people we support. In fact, I think all our guests we support, Dave, because you know what? Maybe they're right. And I don't know who is. Okay, so I will support and defend their rights to say whatever it is they want to say with my life, even if I disagree.
Yeah, that's true. Do you know what? I don't think we've had a guest that hasn't admitted to, if they've followed a particular field. You know how we ask them always, how do you stumble into your field right now? Mm. And they've all said, you know what? I was doing this, and then I discovered that too, and I now have a foot in both. Remember that was the Star Child fellow.
Yeah, Lloyd
Pye. He said the same thing. He said, I was just into Bigfoot.
Yes.
Right? And then, aliens.
Well, that's right. In fact, the skull, and this is a really interesting story. We've got a little bit of time to relate this to you guys who haven't heard it. He was doing a conference speaking on the Bigfoot phenomenon, and this lady came up, look, it's a really funny skull here. It has been in my family's possession for a long time. To make a long story short, could you take a look at it? So he did. It's a real enough skull, okay, guys? This is not made up. You can Google it for yourself. Several books have been written. He's got an excellent website. Have a look for yourself. And he started just looking at the skull. Well, it's not a hominoid skull. It's not a Bigfoot skull. It's not a human skull. What is it? And guess what? He got sucked into it.
Big time, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, much to his detriment, because for a number of years he was vilified, saying, you're faking this and you're faking that. Not so. In fact, science deserted him, and results that he paid for were falsified from DNA testing labs. And in fact, the technology to test to the level that he needed didn't exist when he first started his quest. They exist now, and he's saving his pennies and trying to get other people to contribute to get these last tests done. I mean, they're very expensive. We're not talking about $10,000, but probably hundreds, maybe billions of dollars. I'm not entirely sure. If I had the money, I would give it to him. But so he started on one track, got sucked into it, and is now very much determined to come to the end of this, because we discussed this in the previous show. This skull has some astonishing properties.
Absolutely, it's the bone itself has it looks and appears to be made of tooth enamel. That means that it contains estrogen in it, which is what our teeth are made of. Has a fibre through the bone too, Mickey.
That is correct. It's almost looks a bit like Morgelson's, except the disease. I don't know if you're familiar with this. It's sort of like a fibrous strand, but rather than being in the skin or the flesh, obviously we don't have that. It goes through the bone and adds structural strength. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So imagine like a steel girder that has carbon fiber through it. Something like that.
Yeah. Awesome. No, go. So if anyone's listening to this, if you're interested in following that topic through to its natural conclusion, why don't you jump onto YouTube and have a look at, Google Shiny Side Out, and you'll find the Lloyd Pye, Shiny Side Out, Lloyd Pye, and up comes the interview, and there's a 2-hour interview with him, and if you're not, what's he say? If you're not the smartest person in the room, afterwards, on those topics, you didn't listen to it properly. So,
and we are the guys that have him in the latest interview he did. He hasn't done it. It's been a long time. Mm-hmm. We're really, really lucky to get him, and he hasn't done one since. So this is
really,
yeah, no, he hasn't. This is the latest information that he has given out himself. He's got, of course, a group of people working with him, but this is the first time in a long time that he spoke himself, and we're extremely grateful for that.
We're grateful, lucky, and honoured to have him on the show. What was really awesome about it is every time, and I'm doing this on Facebook now, every time someone posts a Star Child skull image, I post the link to our interview and say, in fact, you guys aren't right, there was nothing to do with surrogates. And they're going, oh, no, that's not right. And I go, well, actually, listen to the interview and you'll find out from him.
Oh yeah, look, absolutely, get it from the horse's mouth. I mean, and you know what? Let's look at the scientists that falsified the information that he was given. It's actually shocking. You know, if people say there's no scientific filter, oh yes, there is. There's definitely a scientific knowledge filter that. Hi everybody, and welcome back to the second half of Shiny Side Out with Dave and
Mickey.
Very nice. We are part of Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. And like we said in the beginning, you can join our show by joining us in the chat, and there's quite a few people in there today. Great. And you can follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook to get updates between shows. And please check out our website. We've got some merchandise there, which is awesome. And Hawk has built a new forum for the site, so please go and check that out as well. Right, Dave.
I was just going to say, you can in the forum. I've started a thread there, so if you're wanting to suggest show topics or anything like that, or just have a chat to us, we're there. Also on our website, you're able to find our direct email contact. Well, it's generic for both of us, but it's direct nonetheless. And you can ask us questions. We'll reply if there's anything that you don't know about it. We'll help you out. You know, it's going to help us build our show strategy for you guys. Yep. You know, we work on this during the week. Where if we had a show that was daily, I don't think we could put it together and give you so much content.
No, that would be difficult.
Having said that, to say the least.
Having said that, we can talk on a whole bunch of subjects for quite some time. And on that though, do tell us when we get things wrong or when you think we got it wrong. Okay, so nothing more annoying than somebody who just talks constantly and thinks they're right. Mm-hmm. So do point out our mistakes. We were happy to correct them on the air, giving you credit with finding out that we did something wrong, and you know there might even be a prize in there for you.
No, absolutely. I'll put it out there today, right now. Maybe I think just because we've got a listener peak. Look, we're going to be giving away a T-shirt, a Shiny Side Out T-shirt, to the person. Yeah, crowd goes wild. The normally sedate Narara crowd goes wild. We'll be giving away a T-shirt in next week's show. So, and what do you think it should be, Mickey? What do you think the reason for giving away should be?
Oh, I don't know. Well,
contributing to the forum.
Yeah, contributing to the forum. I think there should be, if possible, point out where we went wrong. That's definitely worth something.
Oh, I like that too.
Yeah, but yeah, no, even a new piece of evidence. I mean, this is really great. There's a few things that even my colleagues come up to me now, people I work with. No, seriously, there was a guy who came to my desk the other day and said, "Oh, look, have you seen this?" And I haven't. So we will talk about what he showed me. And thanks, Dave, for that. His name is Dave as well. In another show. But yeah, so if you've got a unique piece of information, and maybe even something that your grandparents or have told you, or that's been in your family for a long time, or whatever it might be, just share it with us. And you know, if we can verify it, then definitely that's worth something.
Oh, look, absolutely. And we'll get in contact with you, and we'd like you to let us know when you got that as well, because obviously we'll need your size. We can't do it without that, and we'll put a delivery address in there as well. We'll just be purchasing it and pushing it towards what you suggest. Mm-hmm. All right.
Well, Dave, okay, let's launch into this. We've got a whole bunch of stuff to get through. I won't rush through it because I know that we have no hope in the other place and on Earth to
get through it all.
Yeah, not even the snowballs. Okay.
Can you tell everyone how many pages that you were able to put together that we shrunk it down, or you shrunk it down from?
Okay, so we had 20 pages initially, which we shrank to 12 pages. Mm-hmm. And this is A4 format in a Times New Roman 10 font. So this is a little pamphlet we've put together for this show. Not the longest. The Secret Society is at 28, I think, wins.
Yeah.
But which we couldn't shrink any further. But look, to launch into it, and just to let you guys know, we don't just talk off the mark here. We just don't, blah blah, and hope that we're right, and hope that we can fill 2 hours for you. We do think about what we talk about. We do prepare the show, and we hope that you like what comes out of it. But let's launch into this ancient aliens thing here. Now, the ancient, or the theory of ancient aliens and visitations of the Earth is both controversial and deeply polarizing, specifically within the field of conspiracy research. Okay. Now there's evidence, I believe, for high technological achievements in the past, yet that's the source of that high tech is disputed. So I don't think anybody, except for the mainstream scientists, and I don't know why really, would argue that our ancestors or whoever was here before us, and when I say before us, I mean this particular civilization that has been around, let's call it 5,000 years for argument's sake. Mm-hmm. You can even stretch it to 10,000 years, but we're really only comfortable with 5,000 years, and we have really good records for maybe 2,000 of those, and excellent records where have several sources of truth, not just the people that won the battle for maybe 500-600 years. Don't forget that a lot of information was destroyed. Colonization, by the Spanish, the English, to some lesser extent the French and the Dutch and others. So let's not forget that. So we are dealing with sources that are somewhat limited, and to assume that we know everything would be, I think would be prideful ignorance and foolishness. So now,
but we're going to be talking about where it does go beyond the 5,000 years.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact, our best sources of evidence, Dave, are like you discussed with Giorgio, are stone structures. Mm-hmm. Or, in fact, things that have been written in stone or even on clay, because that lasts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If our civilization was to end, because we are builders in glass and steel, give us 2,000, 3,000 years. And depending on the kind of thing that ends us, be it maybe tsunamis or meteors or maybe solar flare, whatever it might be, maybe less time. But, the nature would reclaim most of what we've built. The things that we built aren't built to last. They really are not.
If there was 2 miles of ice above you, wherever you are listening to this right now, it would shear everything off at ground level and push it out to sea, and it would just dissolve away in the ocean.
Yep.
Think about what would be left. If you could, at some point, while all that was going on, run up to some rock and start madly carving away everything you remember, that would be all that you'd be able to find.
That's right, and not necessarily all the most educated people would survive either. Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to be Stephen Hawking that rolls up and instructs someone to start carving like a Mr. Burns. And
no, that's correct, and not to take it too far, but all that you would have left would be stories, fairy tales, legends of maybe doors that open. When you say open sesame, maybe flying carpets, and things like that, where you go, oh, well, this is just, this is a fairy tale. Well, today, not so much. We do have voice control, if you want to.
When you walk to the supermarket, the doors open automatically for you.
Absolutely. And I don't think anybody that has actually looked at this, and I have looked at this for some time, as has Dave and our guests have as well, would dispute that there's something quite definitive there. It is quite tangible. The evidence is almost overwhelming. And therefore, what remains is the question as to who, how, and why. Right? So was it in fact aliens that gave us this knowledge? And by aliens, I mean visitors from a world other than this one.
Yes.
And it could be from Mars. It could be from one of the moons of Jupiter. It could be another solar system. Or was it interdimensional travelers? Was it time travelers? Or was it us ourselves? Did we attain levels of civilization or of a standard of living that is equivalent, albeit different from what we have today? Because just because you reach a certain, I guess, know-how and
technical advantage or technical level, yeah.
It may not take the same way to develop. So we developed along certain lines over the last 2,000 years, and another civilization that might arise once we are gone might take a very different path to get a similar level of understanding and technology. Okay, so it's important to bear in mind that we're probably not going to find iPods out in the desert, okay? It's not likely. Not saying that we won't, just saying I don't think we will. So, and this is really where Dave and I wouldn't say we disagree that much.
That's okay.
It's just, I believe that the human race is a phoenix, or the original phoenix. Now, a quick recap. A phoenix is a mythological bird that is immortal. Every now and again, when it starts to age or, show signs of decrepitness, it would burn itself and rise anew out of the ashes. So essentially, it would be reborn every now and again, but only through extreme violence, being fire in this case. So it would commit self-immolation and be born anew and fresh and go on its life and do this.
Do not try that at home.
No, do not try this at home. And it would do this until the end of time. Now, I think that is true, because the Egyptians said to Solon when he was visiting that there were many floods and many catastrophes that ended civilization, and the one you remember, the flood that he remembered, I should say, is only one of them. And I believe that the ancient humans, and they may very well have been different to what we are today, may have reached heights that would have led them into the stars. They might have taken them to the stars, met other races out there. Okay. Now, which brings me to the next point is we could already be out there, you and me, and this was explored to some extent by things like the Stargate series on TV, Star Trek as well. So these ideas are not. I'm not bringing them to you as a new thing. They're dormant within a lot of us. They're explored in fiction, on TV and in the movies, and they deal with some, very puzzling things that we just can't explain otherwise. So it's quite possible that if we make it out there, we're already there. And if that is true, then maybe, and we've discussed this as well, maybe there's still some survivors of those civilizations out there. We've discussed the concept of immortality, of monatomic gold, that immortality may be a reality today, and that there may be immortals out there. And well, they had to come from somewhere, right? They had to start somewhere. They didn't just appear. They were born at one stage, and then they just discovered a way of not dying. That's really all. That's all that is. Just the trick is not to die.
And we're not far from that.
That's correct. In fact, if you think about it, if you've got money these days, or in fact any time, and power, your one thing, or the one thing that you tried to do, was to achieve personal immortality, right? We spoke about that in our immortality show, and it's a massive motivator. Now, is it possible that the true terrestrial civilization is underground or under the ocean? There's certainly a lot of UFO activity in the oceans, in the mountains as well, in mountain lakes, in fact, not just in the ocean, in the saltwater regions. So there's definitely a connection there. Was there a solar system war, maybe a galactic war, which caused the destruction of the planet that now exists as the asteroid belt? Now, again, mainstream scientists will tell you it was always an asteroid belt. It has never managed to form itself into a planet.
What a load of...
Well, I think that's not. That's just,
I know. I'm with you. I was supporting you.
Yeah, that's it. I understand. And the thing is this now, and I'm not saying there are no visitors from other worlds here. What I'm saying is that they may very well be invited to be here by us. Well, not you and me, but those of us that went before us and those of us that survived the cataclysm. They might be trading posts here. They're like in the movie They Live. It's fascinating. If you look at the art world and the movies and the books that have been produced over the last 50 years, the stuff has been dealt with on that level. And it's not that alien to us, pardon the pun. It's something that is very much alive within us. And then you look at the ancient stories in the Vimanas, you look at the Chinese mythology, you have there as well. So this is where I'm coming from to some extent. So I have no doubt that there are life forms out there other than human beings that are not from planet Earth, that are very well might be visiting us right now and have visited us in the past. But what I'm saying is maybe it's possible that those guys didn't necessarily bring us everything that we think they did, but maybe we achieved that ourselves and just through a war or a cataclysm lost it. And maybe they're back here to see what happened to us, to see, or maybe the actual civilization that accomplished all of this is still here, underground. I don't know. And what I would like to say is, though, that there's a lot of stuff floating through the airways these days, and specifically because of the movie Prometheus and what it seems to tell us. The director of Prometheus is actually a big believer in panspermia and also ancient alien theory, believe it or not. And it's Ridley Scott. Is that who directed?
It sure is.
Yeah, he's very much on the ancient astronauts page with all of us, and specifically Giorgio, I think. Now, panspermia is the theory that all life, or life on what it started somewhere and has spread throughout the universe. And now, in modern times, we have got Chandra Vikram Singh and Sir Fred Hoyle, who brought it back to life, because in the late 19th century it was first proposed in modern times, but now they have brought this back here and said, well, it's possible that all these I guess, bacteria and microbes and proteins could be attaching themselves to asteroids and make it through the Earth's atmosphere if they're frozen in an ice ball, and that's how life could have started here. Now, those guys are not saying that visitors came here and created us, which has been mentioned in the literature, specifically as was discussed with Giorgio and Dave, the Anunnaki, and it was the Sumerians in their cuneiform tablets, and of which we have thousands, which have mentioned this, that it was those who came from heaven down to earth, in fact, created us to be a workforce.
They created us as a genetic modification to the existing hominid, or hominoid, yep.
In fact, they created us in such a way to resemble them. Mm-hmm. Out of the stock, I guess, they had available on Earth. Now, I would wager it does, if you're familiar with your Bible and Genesis. So there's a whole spectrum of theories and thought that has gone into it. So, but to conclude, panspermia, it is really just the idea that once life starts anywhere in the universe, you can't stop it. It'll just go on. So once you've got a complex protein or a complex bacterium or virus, life will continue in many shapes and forms, which is another thing that I find puzzling, and Dave and I have discussed this, which is the humanoid appearance of most visitors that are reported. Be they the Greys, the Blues, the Nordics, the reptilians, are basically humanoid in shape. There are very few exceptions to this, right? Now, that could be because, well, that's just the form life takes. And guess what? We don't know, because we only have this one planet to judge on, okay? Mm-hmm. 1,000 planets, we'll know more, right? But right now, well, maybe this is really the way life goes. On the other hand, it seems unlikely, because even on planet Earth, we've got a variety of different life forms, which don't really follow our symmetry. You've got, the octopus, which has got a very different body symmetry.
In fact, it's interesting that you bring that one up. But a snake, like all reptiles, insects, all mammals, I think it's all fish, most sea life except for the octopus and the squid, and the mollusks, right? So more simple organisms. We all share the same, except for the octopus, the squid, and the mollusk, and those early life forms. We all share the same construction, where there's a head, a shoulders, whether the shoulders are physical or not, just like a snake, and it goes to being legs and a spine and the whole business. So that was the FOXP2 gene that Lloyd was talking about. So we all share that, whether we're a fish or a human or a dog or what you want to call it.
Yeah, that's correct. In fact, that's a good reason for that, Dave. There was an event, and I got to lie to you now when I give you the right date. I have to don't do that. I'm going to put it into notes. Mm-hmm. 95%, I believe, of all living species were wiped out. Not 95% of all living things, 95% of the species. Mm-hmm. We have today, in all its abundance and variety, is the remaining 5%. Okay, it was a massive extinction level event, which pretty much brought to an end a whole families of different species on this planet. But to press on, we have these thoughts and these limitations, and again, we don't know what it is. We don't know why it is the way it is. But this is where Dave and I come from. Dave, I think if you just want to quickly outline whether or not you see it the way I just described it, or if you've got a slightly varying point of view there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mickey. Yeah, we differ a little, just a slight thing. I do take it back further in time than the 5,000 or even 12,000 years ago. When this is what I believed my entire life, and it was something that I sort of believed always. So it's been at the core of me. And if we simply say that the dinosaurs were here for 65 million years, for I think it was 80 million years all up across their different ELEs that they experienced, and up to 65 million years ago, they were here for a long, long time. Now, we haven't been here for a million years. You recognize that, Mickey?
Oh, no, I agree with you on the timelines a lot. In fact, I would, as far as I'm concerned, I would go back hundreds of millions of years, depending on who you talk to. But I would certainly think the timeline has to be put much further into the past. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So for what I learned that NASA had paid millions and millions of dollars for was a research program into what would the dinosaurs look like if they were bipedal, and how many steps would it be for them let's put it this way, an evolutionary stepping stones to get to a human-looking, bipedal life form. It was 3 steps, only 3 and I think they chose the Velociraptor. Mm-hmm. All right, so the resulting person that they made, or they predicted along a 3-step piece of work that cost them millions and millions of dollars, and geez, I wish I was on that receiving end of that check, was our height, a little greater than intelligence by the amount of brain capacity. It dead set looked like a grey alien, but just our size, not only 4 foot. But they had reptilian skin. Yep. Hello, David Icke. He's obviously loving what I'm talking about if he ever hears this. So there was a reptilian-skinned person-looking thing, and I thought, wow, that's something for NASA, never a straight answer to come up with, and I laughed, right? That's exactly what I believed would probably have happened anyway. You only have a couple of ice ages, which we already have, between there and here, and most of that data is gone. Most of the information, most of the historical records, all of the stuff, all you've got is some bone left. That's it. So that could be anything. Who knew?
Yes.
Now, there's a guest coming up on a future show who's got aliens in the moon and the whole business. I'm sort of, I lean towards there have been, like you said, it's like a solar system war or something. I am leaning there. I completely agree that there's no reason why we can't include that as a possibility. But I think that the amount of steps from what we were supposed to be during the dinosaur era as like a rodent to where we are now is like 20 or more steps. Mm-hmm. And there's gaps all over the place. None of it seems to make any sense. And Lloyd Pye brought that up. And the FOXP2 gene, if you want to research that, and how few changes you're allowed to make to that. Yep. Along the way, and still have a living organism, and he also mentioned something which was interesting. This one swayed me. That evolution isn't fast and slow, whatever it was. It's just this slow evolution of stuff, and intervention points, or the interventionist theory. I'm really leaning towards these days. So, I believe that extinction level events that have occurred, come and gone, have interrupted. Absolutely. Interrupted our technological pathway, stopped us at some point, and we've learnt from scratch all over again, right? So if we look at the Egyptians, the pictures inside the hieroglyphs, or the hieroglyphs. If you look at the hieroglyphs, and there's clearly, this Jason Martel has made a model of it, and that's the light globe that the Egyptians are holding up to power, whatever the work they're doing inside the very, very dark caverns. That means they had electricity. I mean, they clearly did, right? It's not ancient aliens. They might have been taught that, because there's certainly someone that's about 9 foot tall standing there. But I believe that we get a certain chunk of time. Now, if you're a supporter right now of there being a Nibiru or a alien species that comes past and maybe, I don't know, what they do to us, if there is this period of time in which we get to evolve technologically, and then there's some kind of large crisis, which, if you look back in time, there's history filled with these, great floods and famines, and you have a look back, and all of the ancient cultures all mention all these things, that at one point we just forget everything we knew and we start from the Stone Age again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, if that's possible, let's look outside of our little window and go back 3,600 years to the Sumerians, and looking at the ancient structures, which we can recognise as being older than 3,600 years. We can go back, and Hovey's is saying 7 ages of man, which is absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite possible that, it goes back 100,000, 200,000 years, which matches the out of Africa and the interventionist theory again.
Mm.
But maybe it's longer. I don't know. So that's my research. Where I'm stuck right now is I believe that we've got this period of time in between ELEs where we have to try and get off the planet. I reckon
extinction level events. Sorry.
Exactly. So it's like us playing Sim City, right? We're the little Sims running around, and there's someone throwing stuff at us, playing God mode. I shouldn't say playing God, but throwing wrath at us, and we're having to scurry about and do our day-to-day, plus get off the planet in time to survive it. Now, Meki, you said that we might have been off the planet before, we've come back, when we've gone through the universe. Yeah, that's completely possible. I'm a proponent of that. Also, you didn't mention the UFOs coming out of the Southern Ocean. It's completely possible that there's why wouldn't you hide on this planet? It's lovely, right? Why wouldn't you hide underwater so you couldn't be seen? It sort of makes sense. And up on the Central Coast where I live, there was UFO sightings where the UFOs were sucking up seawater and then disappeared. And these were orange orbs, right? Yep. Visibly seen. I love the alien side of it because I have a connection to it. I believe something's going on, but whether they're alien just because they're alien to us or because of their off-worlders, I don't know.
Yeah. Again, look, I don't think we're that far apart. I thought we would be further apart.
We're really not. I just
not.
Include the alien presence and, going back because, the Indian texts describing massive technology. And we've talked about the proof that we've found with the glassified, I'm making that up, there's not really a word, but with the melted sand to make glass and the radiation, which shows there was a technology at some point, right? I completely agree. I think we've gone through it and done it, and we've gone through it and done it, and each one of these ELEs that we've experienced has wiped us back to the Stone Age. Yeah. All we have to do is survive the next one.
Yeah, and just to give you a bit more information on the statements I made earlier. In fact, I've added this to the show notes and the chat. This is from endangeredspeciesinternational.org. This is an official website. Okay, this is not some strange website, if you will. And okay, 99.9% of all species that have existed on Earth are extinct. Mm-hmm. And there are 5 mass extinctions mentioned here. One of them was the one, actually, in fact, the 95% one is the Permian.
Yeah.
Triassic extinction. Anyway, but just a point. So having said all of that, and bearing in mind, there's a lot of good work being done by a whole bunch of people around this, specifically dating and trying to collect physical evidence, textual evidence around the world. The idea of ancient aliens is pretty basic, really, if you think about it, right? It's really about human or human beings interacting or being influenced by a group of extraterrestrials, potentially, right, that have visited Earth in the past. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's pure and simple. Now, there the theories split, and you can argue. Some believe that I don't want to say aliens, that the visitors were directly involved in the evolution of primates, including us. It's also been suggested that this was accomplished by way of genetic engineering, crossbreeding, and who knows what they have done, right? In modern times, and we've spoken about him at length now, and Giorgio actually knows him well, worked with him, and has a lot of respect for him. And the idea was first, in modern times, was first gained exposure in the 1968 publication of Chariots of the Gods, I think we mentioned, by Erich von Däniken. But the concept has been around since the middle of the 19th century. So again, this is not necessarily all brand new stuff, okay?
What's the picture you've posted there?
That picture is of Aboriginal drawings.
This was Australian Aboriginals?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll find that. You keep going and I'll find it. I'll post it.
Absolutely. So there are rock drawings available, carvings that, and it's quite astonishing. The level of detail has, like, people looks like they're wearing spacesuits and space helmets. And Erich von Däniken makes the, I guess, controversially, the connection with biblical accounts. So the Bible is full of stories of chariots of fire, wheels within wheels, and other things like that. And it's interesting, I think we mentioned this in the past show, there's a NASA engineer by the name of Joseph F. Blumrich, Blumrich, that read that book, it seems, Däniken's book, and went to the Bible and looked at the description that Hezekiel, the prophet Hezekiel, gave of this space vehicle that took him into the air, and patented it. We spoke about this before. So there's a description of this thing in the Bible, some kind of flying machine, and this NASA engineer goes ahead and designs it, and has now got a patent under his name for it. Okay, so it's a variant, so you can see, is that our religions, this is where I know I have to tread carefully. Okay,
not according to the chat room right now.
No, okay. So the shiny side out is all about talking about things that nobody wants to talk about. Okay, and that's fair. There's no taboo subject for us unless it actively encourages bigotry or dissent or conflict. We don't want to do that.
We don't do that. But they're talking about John 3.
Yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm. So we are not for any kind of violence.
No, not at all.
Okay, so now it is possible, it seems, that our religions, in fact, were influenced potentially by these ancient astronauts. And again, I will not commit on where they're from. What I'm saying to you is that it seems that the technology that was available to those beings at the time, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever, 1,000 years ago, was far superior, of course, than anything available to man at that time, our immediate ancestors. And Giorgio was right. Arthur C. Clarke did say any sufficiently advanced technology will appear as magic. It was a signature on my email for years. And
that's right, I remember that.
And it's one of my favorite quotes because it's true. In fact, I dare you to go out in the street, and I think we've spoken about this before, ask anyone how television works. Ask him to explain the workings of a microwave, telephone, a soda pop. Ask him why the pop pops. Okay? Or how does the carbon dioxide get into the soda? Okay.
Yeah.
So and again, you just accept it because that's your life. You just do it. It's just there. If you had to build it, you could not. You need a level of sophistication and tools to build what you have in order to just enjoy the life that we have, right? So the technology would be impossible for the people of the time to understand. Impossible. The best example, and again, it was mentioned in the interview, is the cargo cults. Now, again, we've spoken about this at length. And Dave, this is one of your favorite subjects, I think.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you very much for handing that over. Look, the cargo cults were brought out more so at the end of World War II. Most of the indigenous species populations around the Pacific, specifically as well in New Guinea and Borneo, in some of those places that hadn't seen any person ever before, and with the flight paths not normally going over their either their island or their area, suddenly discovered for some reason that someone had landed, like a plane had landed on their island, and forever marking that day after the person had flown back away again, with like the pilot's gotten out, he's got a fur, got a flight coat on, flight jacket, and he looks a little weird. He's wearing clothes that don't sort of suit, that don't match them. He might have a breathing apparatus because he's in a cockpit that isn't pressurized. He gets out, he looks weird. He's wearing clothes that they've never seen, right? Meki, right?
Correct.
And he gets out and lights a cigarette. He can make fire in his hand.
Yeah.
Right? To them, it's magic. They've never seen or heard what's this plane makes heaps of noise, right? But they don't know it's a plane. They don't know it's a machine. They touch it and they think it's alive, but it's only alive to him. They think he's a magical god. And when he flies away, never to be seen again, every year marking that day as an anniversary, they rebuild like in some cases, they rebuild a wicker plane to commemorate the day, hoping that he'll come back.
Yep.
Right?
So essentially they started building a religion, right?
Around these gods that turned up.
Because they obviously, being Americans or whatever they were, they would have left stuff around, probably given the natives chocolate, things like that, right? And it would have left a deep, deep, deep impression on the natives. And you know what? This is something that just happened. Yeah, 50, 60 years ago, right here with people that were probably similarly primitive, potentially, as our ancestors at the time of these alleged events. So this is inherent in human nature, right? This is not some
Can I say the words?
Yeah.
We have a predisposition.
Yes.
To do two things. One is love gold for whatever reason that means, and the other one is to worship a god of some kind. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, if there's something in front of you that has the same qualities as a god in some kind, we're going to look up at them. Mm-hmm. It's what we do. It's how our entire society is based around working for the man.
Yes.
These are people of power. We respect power, but it's automatic.
Yes.
Actually, there's some of us out there who don't want to work for the man.
Yes. That's right.
They don't want to do it. They don't. And you know what? That's good, and it's good on you.
Yeah, but it's a conscious choice. Most of us just, and includes me to some extent, I'm sure.
It's automatic.
Just go along with it. In fact, just to belabor this example a bit more. In the street, if you see someone in a uniform, a police officer arresting someone, or even being rough with someone, chances are that you would go, oh yeah, that person probably deserved it. Oh yeah, well, it's a police officer. They know what they're doing. I better not get involved. Very few of us would question whether or not the violence or roughness
was appropriate, or if they should stop. They're not going to intervene.
Absolutely. Whereas if a regular dude dressed in normal clothes would do that, you would interfere. Well, you might be afraid, but you wouldn't just accept it.
Do you know what? I'm going to add something, man. I'm going to add this.
Cool.
on the drive from my place, it's about 25-mile freeway trip, right? With almost zero exits. I say almost because there's nothing there anyway, right? If there's a police car that stops someone, we have adopted a herd mentality to go, well, that's the end of them.
Yep.
I'm going to keep going. Phew, it wasn't me.
Yep.
The herd mentality is something that I didn't expect to experience myself. I'm not in a herd. I'm a guy going to work.
No, you're not.
We're in a group of cars that have to make the same trip. And that's the predator that's pulling people away, pulling the weak one, pulling the stupid, I don't know what you would like to call them, someone who's not playing by the rules. But you know what? That's what the lion does to the deer, or that's, to the buffalo. They pull them down. They find the weak one and they pull them. And I feel like it's almost like survivor guilt. I made it. Yeah.
Oh man, now I'm gonna cry. No, but Dave, you're absolutely 100% correct. Mm-hmm. Because it's not me this time. Woo-hoo!
It's inbuilt.
Yes, and so there are a lot of these archetypes, and in fact, psychiatry has identified them. Jung did a lot of pioneering work in this field, and he called some of the things that we associate with our totems, as he called them, the archetypes. And it's something that we can't fight because it's within us. Very few of us have the strength and the moral fortitude to stare, this kind of danger in the face and fight it and question authority. People say, it's hard to hide conspiracies, hard to falsify information. Not at all. In fact, sometimes people don't even have to be coerced into it. It's just built into us. Oh yeah, we will follow. Oh yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. In fact, sometimes it's just it's like a pat on the shoulder. My boss, yes, I will follow company policy. I'm a company man, or yeah. Let's not, just associate with those troublemakers. Mm-hmm. It's what it is. So, we're talking about these things. It's really interesting that because this really goes into some kind of property, right? It's almost as though we're someone's property, if you think about it, right? We're acting as though we've been indoctrinated and act a certain way, like a slave would, to some extent. On that, I have a very interesting quote by Charles Fort. You might know him. He put a whole bunch of strange phenomena together in a book. And if we say something is Fortean, it actually refers back to him, strange.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, absolutely. And now, he had apparently an unpublished manuscript in 1915. It was called Novel X. And it describes how Martian beings or Martian events control life on Earth. Okay, don't forget this was prior to the Martian invasion that Orwell, not George Orwell.
H.G. Wells.
H.G. Wells. No, sorry, no, I'm right. George Orwell. I don't know. Who was the director that directed, who starred in Citizen Kane as well?
Okay, you just keep talking. I'll find it.
So anyway, that guy had a scare in the United States with the radio show that the Martians were invading. So that was
Orson Welles.
Orson Welles, that's him. Some Welles. So Ford ultimately burned the manuscript apparently, but one surviving quote from it is this. This is the quote: "The Earth is a farm, and we are someone else's property." Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, I wrote a short story very much along those same lines. Again, I can't really mention the content because I would upset too many people. I might post it on our site so you can read it for yourselves if you like. I called it "Say a Little Prayer." You can imagine what the story is about. So what we are trying to say here is that human beings are predisposed to be religious, to follow a certain order of things, to follow authority. And if someone with amazing powers came down to the earth, and maybe not so much today, depending though on the level of advancements, maybe still to this day we would do this, we would create a religion around it. We would elevate these creatures to godlike status. And over time, those godlike statuses would become de facto gods. And I think this is what has happened to some extent here. Moving on, though, from this, and this is really just setting the base for our discussion, and we've got another 10 minutes, unfortunately, only. I would like to talk about the swiftness with which our technology has advanced in recent years, in fact. Okay, and how we have seen things that prior to this maybe were not recorded in the same fashion. There were Foo Fighters in World War II, which were mysterious orbs following the Allied planes as they were fighting in the Pacific and in the European theater of operations. Okay? And if you look at how much we have achieved since World War II,
60 years later.
60 years later. Now, let's think about this. In 1903, Wilbur Wright, the Wright brothers, the guys that invented the heavier than air aircraft, something that was quite impossible, of course.
That's right.
They set the aircraft speed record, okay, at 10.98 kilometers an hour, which is 6.82 miles.
Sorry, that's hilariously slow.
Now, in 1976, a mere 73 years later, 73 years, 1976, the SR-71 Blackbird, guess what? It went 3,529.6 kilometers an hour, which is 2,193 miles per hour. Okay?
Yep.
So we leapt. And some say I'll talk to you why this is actually important and how it connects to the ancient aliens theory. We leapt forward at astonishing speeds.
It's like 3,000%, right?
It's astonishing. Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's you can't even grasp it. Like, I mean, the Wright brothers wouldn't even believe it, I think, if they had seen it.
No.
And now a lot of people believe that the technical advancements that we have experienced since World War II have been achieved with the help of extraterrestrial life and equipment. Okay? Now, it has been suggested that the development of nuclear weapons sparked an increased interest in humanity's evolutionary path, ultimately leading to an era of mass abduction and close encounters. So the argument here is that we have potentially found ancient alien artifacts. We potentially found more recent artifacts. I'm talking Roswell here. I'm also talking about, when I say ancient artifacts, about Nazis looking for things. Okay. I'm talking about other agencies looking for ancient artifacts of high technology. Okay. Others point to the current global climate disruption and, I guess, end of the world predictions, and identifying them as a precursor for the secret extraterrestrial involvement and intervention on Earth, ensuring the survival of life. And Mother Shipton made a prophecy that the great silver snake would come down and help the survivors of the great cataclysm.
That's right.
I suggest you look up Mother Shipton yourself and form your own opinion. I'm just throwing it out there. So there's an argument here that we didn't achieve all of this on our own. Hard to verify, hard to deny. People will say, "Oh no, we can follow everything, and this is how it is." The truth is this: we cannot, and the reason we cannot is a lot of the information and a lot of technology that is being used today came out of secret programs. Okay, a lot of it. In fact, a lot of secret programs are still producing a lot of technology that is well advanced in what we know today. And Skunkworks is one, for instance. That's where the Lockheed Martin facility down in, I think it's Arizona, but I could be lying to you. I'm not sure. I would suggest you read the book by Nick Hunt. I'll give you the name. It's called The Hunt for Zero Point. And it's a fascinating book by a journalist that is also a writer for Jane's Defense Weekly, quite a serious magazine in the United States.
And if you're not aware of it, 0 Point is 0 Point energy.
Yes, sorry, it is. And his name, I've got the book right here. Sorry, let me just grab it. The book is, 0 Point, and it was by Nick Cook. Sorry, his name is Nick Cook. I highly recommend it. It is not really at all what I would consider conspiracy at all. It is very well written, and it's his investigation that spans several decades. So a lot of this technology we can't actually trace. If somebody argues with you, that's fine. Ask him, show me the evolutionary path, and show me the patents, and show me the people that did this. Okay? Love to. I'm happy to be proven wrong here, by the way. And nothing more than I would like to take credit for is that human beings actually can do it all ourselves. That'd be wonderful. But the point is that we probably didn't get it all done ourselves. We probably did find things. There's a story that went around in 2011 and 2010 that there was a aluminium object found in Afghanistan. I will find the story for you, which was dated at 10,000 years. Now, aluminium is not that recent an invention. Okay.
Sorry. It isn't that old an invention, and in our times in metallurgy, it's quite new.
Yes, absolutely right. In fact, very new. And so the artifact may have been the landing gear for a much larger craft. Oh.
I remember that bit.
It's astonishing.
Can I segue that to Pascal's sarcophagus?
Ooh.
Do you mind?
Go ahead, man.
Because we've got like 4 minutes, right? So, do you know where that? I'll paste it in as I'm talking too. Look, this segue comes from southern Mexico. So Pascal the Great ruled over the Mayan city, and there's a a petroglyph there, which is a rock carving, which shows a person. I'm not fooling, guys. It's got a rocket at the back. There's an engine. There's a seat. There's a person sitting there with their foot on a pedal. Looks like they're breathing something into their nose, and they're operating, levers and control mechanisms. And it looks like, for all intents and purposes, a cutaway diagram of the internal workings of someone flying something.
Correct.
Right? Without, and there's even what they're flying around. There's stars, and there's other things in the air that they look like they're pursuing or whatever. Right? Well, I have to say that this, Eric von Daniken, he talks about this as well, and certainly Jason and Giorgio have brought this one up, and it's something. It really is. It can't be that we haven't done this before. I'm backing my argument up. The technology is there. Finding a landing gear in another country that's thousands of years old makes sense if you see this picture.
Oh, absolutely. And people will tell you, oh no, it's just a ritualistic, stylish, religious thing which doesn't have any bearing on anything. But if you look at his feet, even his feet are looking like, one foot at least is working a lever. Both of his hands look like they're adjusting fine. I'm looking at this right now.
Yeah, me too. And I'm just going to post the link into the chat so they can have a look for themselves.
Like they're fine-tuning controls. It looks like he's actually sitting on the engine block. It's separated from him. Yep. It looks like there's an exit flame underneath him coming out of the vehicle he's in. I don't know. If you're technologically minded, you will see what I mean. If you're not, then you'll probably see a guy sitting in a tree picking a grape.
I know. You can definitely see the curvature of an inlet of some kind. It looks like it's a cutaway of a jet engine, right? But the person's inside it.
Correct. And again, this ties in with the descriptions we have in texts, ancient texts of the Vimanas, the flying machines of the Indian epics. There's several different, I think it's about 36 different machines they say there were for different heroes and gods. They all had their own. They were powered by quicksilver, which is mercury, and orichalco. And I've made the point before that I think orichalco might have been white gold powder. Don't know for a fact, just putting it out there. And we are coming very much to the close of this show, so we will continue this discussion. We haven't even
didn't even touch it, man. We got like 5 pages in.
No, and we've really just tried to lay a foundation here. And again, the more information you think we have missed, the better it is. If you tell us about it, of course, only. So let us know.
We're hoping to, but it's going to be upon the availability of Mike Barra for next week. It might be that one on the next week, so we might just continue this topic and take it all the way through to him.
Yes,
absolutely. I reckon that's awesome. Yeah,
so this is something has happened to us a lot now. If you have any information, any research, please do let us know. We are more than happy